So in this class we have called Basic Applet. We extend the Applet class, which is necessary to create a basic applet. It's not necessary that you implement runnable, but that's what gives it the rich feature of producing graphics on the screen and simulating animation. So when we implement the runnable, we need to create a thread. So we're going to create a thread called runner in here. And then we also have image named buffer and a graphics named gbuffer. They're kind of generic names. You could name them whatever you want, gbuffer and buffer, but a lot of people seem to go with that as the protocol. I'll get to these later. These aren't necessary. They're first some examples I'm going to show you. So the next method that you have inside of your applet is what's called the init method, short for initialization. And this is like a constructor method in that this is where you would initialize any of your class variables that you have up here. And that's exactly what we do. We make the buffer. So basically the buffer creates a image the size of your applet. It gets these are little methods here that call and get the size, the width, and height of your applet. Similarly, we initiate the gbuffer, which basically allows us to write graphics to the screen. This isn't necessary, but it's good to know the width and the height of your applet just in case you need to call upon it later. Since we have a thread going here, you would have a start method, which basically gets your thread started. And you have a stop method, which is just put in as a save fail. Should something go wrong in the applet, it has a way out. And then you have your run method, which sets everything in action, kind of like a main method almost. And this has a loop in it, which basically just keeps on calling our runner thread. And the time in here is in milliseconds, so that you want to make it really fast so that when you have something moving on the screen, it can move and simulate animation. If it went too slow, it would, it wouldn't fool the eyes into displaying animation. This is a try catch the first time you're seeing this, and that basically is put in there in case anything goes wrong. You try this. If you get some kind of error or exception, then it catches it. It's basically how that's read. Then what we have, I'm going to show you in a second, you have a paint method. The paint method is where everything gets displayed to the screen. And you have inside your while loop the repaint, which basically just keeps repainting the screen. So that's basically what a thread does. It gives priority to the the thread method gives priority to the current thread, and paint method paints that to the screen. So you have this simple little update method that basically updates the screen with the latest paint method, and I'll show you momentarily how the paint method could change. This is where my first couple examples here are going to be very static. So inside your paint method, and remember, this is what gets shown to the screen. Is paint, just think of it as this is what gets painted to the screen. You set your color of your background. The first color that you set, this is a standard method called set color, and you have color.black. It could be any of the primary colors in there. And then you have a fill rectangle, which is the size of your applet. So you're basically going to have a rectangle that's the size of the screen, and it's going to be painted black. So that's your background. You could choose whatever color you want for your background, but that's what we have. Then I have a set color here. Again, we'll set to green. That's going to change anything that's in our foreground. I'm going to show you some basic examples of what you could have in the foreground. You could have many things going on here, and you could set color multiple times. But for right now, I'm just going to show you an example. The first example here is drawing an oval to the screen. So you continue with this gbuffer graphics variable that we set up as a class variable. And so you just go gbuffer.filloval, and you have 4 parameters in here. And I commented out on the side what they equal. So that's the first one is x, the second one is the y-axis, the next one's the width of the oval and the height of the oval. Since we're creating a circle, they should be the same, the width and the height. This you could make anything, but as long as it's on the screen. So let's show you how that how that looks. So if we hit compile here, you get all these little warnings. You can ignore them though. And by the way, I'm going to, if you look down in the description, there'll be a link to this file, so you will not have to write all this out. You can actually download this file and run it and play around with it. So when we run it, you actually get a little different interface here. When you right click, it has run applet. That's the one we're going to go with. Click on that and it comes up to this screen here. We'll just go with the default that sets it to 500 by 500. Hit OK. And if I slide this over, you'll see that we have a circle in the top right corner, which is basically right over here is x20, y20, and that's where we told it to start, and then it gets the width and the height from there. Okay, so that's one basic feature is the oval. Let's show you now a rectangle, which is very similar. Instead you go with a fill rec, and again you get x-axis, y-axis, and then width and height. So this is going to start at 20 over from the right, 100 pixels down. These are all pixels, by the way, which are little small units of measurement on your screen. The smallest little dot on your screen represents a pixel. And we can talk more about that in class, but then you're going to go over 100 to the right, and it's going to be 30 in height. So just to see what that looks like, compile, hit OK there, run the applet, hit OK, and looks like that. So you get a rectangle appears on the screen. You can do the same thing for a line. I'll just show you what that looks like real quick. I'm not going to run this one. Save some time here. But it's just gbuffer, draw a line, and you have basically you declare 2 points. So the first point is x-axis 1, y-axis 1, which is 1 point, and then the end point, x2 and y2, and it just draws a line to connect them. I'll just show you real quick. There you go, little green line there. We'll get into later, you can actually change the thickness of that line with different methods, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So another one that's very important is similar to the system.out.print that we were used to using. So when you want to display text to the screen, you use draw string. And basically you put a string in here. Again, this could be a variable or a string literal, as we have right now. And then you set the x and the y axis where you want that to start. And we'll compile that. Okay. And run the applet. Okay. And you'll see how that prints hello world to the screen there, according to where we set it to be displayed. Alright, and the last thing I'm going to show you is how you can display an image to the screen. If you notice up here, I had a variable called img of type image, and then what we need to do is in the init method, we have to initialize that variable by making it equal to an image that exists either on our machine or on the internet. And if it's on our machine, this is the standard protocol, so it's image equals get image, and then code base open close parentheses is a method that allows you to grab images from a folder on your computer. And you could actually have a subfolder, you know, images, and do a /, but actually I just dropped the image right into the folder. So this, where it's going to look is the folder where this file exists, my file basic applet, which happens to exist for me in this project file, AP Comp Sci 1, and there it is. It's called tennis PNG, and so that has to be the exact name given here. Right? And then we have to go down into our paint method, and I'll show you what it looks like down there. Scroll down and we'll get rid of our little drawstring. So we could even just leave it there, it doesn't matter. And so we have this draw image method, which you put in the name of the image. So we had a variable displaying that name. And then you give the X and the Y axis where you want that image to appear. Compile, close. Let's run that. And you'll see there's my image of a tennis ball. Okay. Now I want to show you one last thing, is to give a little interactivity to this, to show some motion, animation, if you will. I created this little move ball method, which I'll put right down here underneath the paint method, and I'll explain it to you in 1 second. Let me just add all my other elements. So right here, we'll put that in, and so let me go up to the top here. You know, so I have this Boolean called go right, and I set it to initially equal to true. I have this variable int x equals 10, and so let me show you how I'm going to use that. So down here, I'm going to change in my draw image method here. I'm going to actually change, this is the x-axis, I'm going to change that to x. So remember, that was set to 10, so it's really going to be the same as it was. But I'm going to add some animation to this by using this move ball method. So the move ball method gets called, and remember I said it was initially equal to true. So if it's equal to true, x is going to increment by 1. And remember, this gets called every every 10 milliseconds. So it gets called a lot. So adding 1 to it will actually add some nice animation to this. And then I have these few if statements here for once the ball goes off the screen. So if it's greater than the screen width, then go right is going to equal false. And down here in the move ball method, you see that if go right is not equal to true, we go to else, and it starts decrementing. And then same thing happens if we get off the screen to the left. Once x is less than 0, go true. Go right is equal to true, and then we start incrementing again. So let's just take a look at what that looks like. Put that in action. So there we go. The ball is moving over there to the right. As soon as it gets off the screen, it should pop back to the left. Bam, there we go. You got your little animation. You can kind of see that if you put a rectangle on there and some other methods, you could make a little game of Pong, which we probably will do that shortly. So that's Applets. Like I said, download this file, play around with it, and we'll talk about it more in class. Thanks.